Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the show. I got a pretty interesting show here today, guys. I was looking through the draft ADP, the early rankings for the 2023 season on a lot of different platforms, and I've noticed some things about ADP and players that are, in my opinion, just way off. So we're going to be looking at players whose ADP is essentially ridiculous right now, and they are absolute steals in the 2023 draft. Now, obviously, their ADP is subject to change because it's very early, but right now, we're going to be looking at where they're currently going in the draft and why I think they're a massive steal. So I'm going to start right here with the first player on my list, and that is Amari Cooper. Now, this is a guy who slept on every year in fantasy, as we know. This guy had over 1,100 receiving yards this season, despite pretty much spending the entire season without having his quarterback in Deshaun Watson. So, this is a guy who his ADP last year was right around, pick number 50 in the draft, essentially, and he now has the same ADP. He's going between picks 50 and 60 in the draft after outperforming expectations last year without having his quarterback. So I don't understand how in the world this guy's ADP isn't higher, considering the fact that he's still, an extremely talented wide receiver who puts up good numbers every single season, no matter what system he's in. He's hopped around and been productive on 3 different teams, and now he's going to get his quarterback for a full season in Deshaun Watson. So this guy's ADP should be higher. He's an absolute steal right now, and I would grab this guy in the draft because he is hands down one of the best values that we're currently looking at. Next player on my list is going to be Kenneth Walker. Now, it's funny to call this guy a steal because he's going to go pretty early in the draft. Somewhere between picks 20 and 30 is kind of where he's going right now. But I think this guy easily has the upside to be the running back one in fantasy. I mean, this is a guy who, in his last 3 games, he had 23-plus carries in every single game. And these were very pivotal games for the Seahawks. These are games where, the Seahawks were fighting for a playoff spot, and they were feeding Kenneth Walker a lot in these very pivotal games. That means they have a lot of trust in him. We saw this guy play in college. We know what a tremendous playmaker he could be. He really exploded in his first season in the NFL. This guy was incredibly efficient. He had some of the best yards per carry efficiency in the league. And we started to see him actually catch some passes out of the backfield. So that's a very good sign. He has the potential to actually be a very good PPR back. I think that, even though there are backs that catch more passes than him, he's going to make up for that with the rushing volume anyway. So considering the fact that he's at least seeing some passing work out of the backfield with his incredible rushing abilities, I love this guy on the season. I think he has the upside to be the running back one in fantasy. I could definitely see that happening. And right now he is a steal because he's going as, the running back 10. So grab this guy in the draft. Next player on my list is going to be Calvin Ridley. Now, I am excited about Calvin Ridley this season. I mean, look, the last full season we saw him play, he had over 1,300 receiving yards. This is a guy who is an immensely talented wide receiver. He's now going over to the Jacksonville system with, an improving Trevor Lawrence that just gets better and better on a weekly basis. Trevor Lawrence is starting to kind of become the quarterback that, a lot of us thought he could be. His first year, I thought people weren't really giving him the benefit of the doubt because, well, he just wasn't in a very good system. Urban Meyer was coaching the team to start the season, and he just didn't really have enough weapons to throw the ball to. But now, with Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley, I think this is going to be a very efficient overall offense. Obviously, Travis Etienne helps with that as well. And so, look, I think that Calvin Ridley is going to head this wide receiver squad. I mean, Christian Kirk's a talented wide receiver, don't get me wrong, but the talent difference between him and Calvin Ridley is bigger than people think, okay? Calvin Ridley is a true wide receiver one. Christian Kirk is not a true wide receiver one. I mean, he kind of had that role in his offense this year because, they signed him for the big contract and everything like that. And he's still going to get a healthy target share in the offense. But Calvin Ridley is by far and away the more talented wide receiver. It is not even close. This is a guy who is a top 5 wide receiver against man coverage in his last full season. He's very hard to cover. He commands a double team a lot of times, so he's going to open up the offense. I think this offense is going to be extremely efficient next season. And I think that Calvin Ridley is going to lead all the offensive weapons in fantasy points. And yes, that includes Travis Etienne. That's how big I am on Calvin Ridley going into this season. Next player on my list is going to be DeAndre Swift. Now, DeAndre Swift had a great first game and then just fell off the map this past season. Now, a big reason for this is he was dealing with injuries, so he was on and off the field. And then, later in the season, Jamal Williams kind of started to take over. But Jamal Williams is a free agent. He's not going to be on the team this year. So, I guess supposedly the Lions could re-sign Jamal Williams. But there's a decent chance that he goes somewhere else. And if DeAndre Swift gets to head this backfield, I love him to be an awesome bounce back player this year. He's going to have a full offseason to recover from all those petty injuries that he was having. And let's not forget that this is an incredibly talented pass catching back. They also dealt TJ Hawkinson, so that means less targets for the tight ends and wide receivers overall. So the DeAndre Swift target share should go up, considering the fact that they have less pass catching weapons now. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to head this offense. We all know that, but DeAndre Swift is going to see an increased target share, and I think that as long as he can stay healthy this next season, he is primed for a huge bounce back. Next steal on my list is going to be Trevor Lawrence. While we're on the subject of, the Jaguars and Calvin Ridley, guys, Trevor Lawrence, there were 9 quarterbacks in the NFL this year to have over 4,000 passing yards, and Trevor Lawrence was one of them. So he kind of sneakily had a really good season. He really started to emerge in the second half of the season as the Jaguars started going on that massive winning streak. And I love the outlook for this guy. I just love it. Going into his third season, we know that this guy is immensely talented, and now we add Christian Kirk to the offense. We have a healthy Travis Etienne. This could be a top 5 offense in the NFL this coming season. Now, a lot of people aren't going to agree with that, but I think they have an outside shot to be a top 5 offense in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence is going to pass for over 4,000 yards again, and I think he has a chance to pass for over 4,500 yards this coming season with the added weapon in Calvin Ridley. Next player on my list is going to be Deshaun Watson. Now, this is one of the bigger steals in the draft, guys. He might be the biggest steal in the draft because, look, I think people are forgetting how good this guy is because we haven't seen him play in a while. He was in an absolutely terrible system in Houston and produced awesome numbers because of his incredible passing abilities and his incredible rushing abilities. I mean, this guy is just as talented as Josh Allen. Okay, now, everybody is prone to recency bias, so nobody's going to agree with that because, the most recent thing we've seen is Josh Allen pretty much, right up there with Pat Mahomes as, the most dominant weapon in fantasy football at the quarterback position. But Deshaun Watson is just as talented, guys. I'm telling you, he has a similar arm talent to Josh Allen, and he has similar rushing talent to Josh Allen. Okay, so this is a quarterback that could come out and produce awesome numbers because of his dual threat abilities. He's going to have a full season to work with the team. And, don't base anything on what you saw last year because let's not forget that Deshaun Watson wasn't even able to practice with the team during his suspension. So he didn't even return to practice until, 2 weeks before starting this past season. So don't base anything on what you've seen with Deshaun Watson as far as, late in the season this past year. When this guy gets a full season, a full offseason to work with his team, he is going to absolutely explode because this is technically the best system he's ever been in. Now, obviously, the Browns aren't that good of a system overall, but it's a way better situation than the Houston Texans. So, if he could do well in that system, he could certainly do well on the Browns. On top of this, Kareem Hunt is a free agent. So, you got to figure that if Nick Chubb heads to the backfield and he doesn't have an elite running back running behind him, there's going to be overall just less rushing volume for the running backs of the offense, which means increased rushing volume for Deshaun Watson and probably increased passing volume for Deshaun Watson. So I think, as long as Kareem Hunt leaves the team, I think that we're going to see Deshaun Watson really get to open up in his offense. He's going to get to run the ball more. He's going to get to pass the ball way more. And I actually love the overall efficiency of the offense this coming season. And I think Deshaun Watson has the upside to be the quarterback one. I mean, why wouldn't he? It's Deshaun freaking Watson. He's one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the entire NFL. A lot of people are forgetting about him because they haven't seen him, play a full season in a while. We only saw him play a few games this past season, but once he has a full offseason to work with the team, this guy's going to explode. He has an awesome draft value. He's going at ADP like 110 overall, quarterback 15. This is an absolute joke. He probably is the biggest steal in the draft, so you need to get your hands on this guy. Next and final player on my list, last player I have here is Rachaad White. Now, as the season progressed for the Bucs, we saw kind of Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette, splitting carries pretty much. So Rachaad White, the volume was way up. And Leonard Fournette, he's a little bit out of shape. He's a little bit overweight. And he's getting a little bit older. He has over 1,100 career carries now. So I think that we are about to see a sharp decline in efficiency from Leonard Fournette. And this is a running back who has never been that efficient to begin with. This is a guy who has always thrived on volume. Like when he was, in Jacksonville, his yards per carry efficiency was never that good. So, considering the fact that he's never been that efficient of a running back to begin with, I think that Rachaad White is about to take over this backfield. We're going to see him get the majority of the carries this coming season. Now, obviously, we got to keep an eye on the quarterback situation because that's going to greatly affect the overall efficiency of the offense. But either way, I think that Rachaad White is going to see so much volume this coming season that no matter who the quarterback is, I think he's going to produce some pretty darn good fantasy numbers. He's going between picks 110 and 130 in the draft. So, this is definitely in the category of a late round steal. This is a guy who, you can wait until pretty much the very end of your draft, like rounds 12 and 13, to grab this guy. What a tremendous draft value for an extremely talented running back that could end up being the running back one in his offense. My goodness gracious. Just fade Leonard Fournette early and draft Rachaad White. All right, guys, I do appreciate you tuning into the video. These are my 7 biggest steals for the 2023 fantasy football season. I do appreciate you tuning into the video, guys. Obviously, these rankings are going to change as as we get closer to the season, but the ADP that we're looking at for these players right now is ridiculous. They are all massive steals. So, unless their ADP changes tremendously between now and the time we draft our teams, you need to get your hands on these guys. All right, guys, appreciate you tuning into the video. I will catch you later.